Hi, I'm John Nystrom here with Gunnar Leopard on Nice News, and today we'll be discussing Black Lives Matter movement. Tonight we'll be having special guests on, Jamie Friel and Black Lives Matter's activist Victor Gacina, on to debate the topics of Black Lives Matters. Here's Gunnar with some insight on Black Lives Matters and what they've been doing recently.
And now here's a video from a Black Lives Matter activist explaining what they believe Black Lives Matter stands for.
The Black Lives Matter movement doesn't mean that Black Lives matter more than others. We just won't stand idly by as people slaughter us with impunity.
Black lives, they matter! Black lives, they matter!
There are many misconceptions about the movement, especially among older white Americans. It can be hard for them to understand and even make them feel threatened. So maybe it'll help them feel more comfortable if I explain the movement through sailing metaphors. Think of America as a boat. Better yet, a Cantilena sloop. Yanmar diesel engine, spacious cabin berth, the works. You'd want to protect that against leaks and cracks, right? Well, extrajudicial killings against Black Americans are like a leak in the hull or a crack in the bowsprit. They make the vessel unseaworthy and difficult to navigate. That's how racism in America prevents this country from moving in the right direction. Picture this. You're mooring your sailboat along the Key West coastline, and in the distance, a storm cloud starts rolling in. Those clouds are institutional racism. To best navigate the storm ahead, Black Americans stage protests, which is like battening down the hatches. The Black Lives Matter movement wants to draw attention to the unjustified murders of African Americans, just like you would want to draw attention to an incoming squall so it doesn't tear a hole through your furling mainsail, which you love very much and want to protect. Every time we hold someone accountable for unjustly harming a Black body, it's like cleaning off a coat of slime from the bottom of your prop that's keeping you from carving through the Pacific at 28 knots. Understanding that Black lives are not disposable and do matter and should be protected is the same as getting one step closer to finally owning that 400-foot carbon fiber super yacht with 3 swimming pools, a helipad, and masts as high as the Statue of Liberty. Everyone should want that.
Now back to John to show you what Center Grove students think about Black Lives Matter.
Hi, I'm here with fellow student at Center Grove High School, Ian. Ian, what is your opinion on Black Lives Matter movement?
I'm not really pro-Black Lives Matter movement. Of course, I value the lives of African-American students and minorities, but I don't like how they riot, destroy property, and have sometimes turned their protest into violent protest. I support protest styles in the same style as Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Peaceful protests that achieve a political means of equality without the loss of life or destruction of property.
So do you think there is racial injustice in the United States currently?
To say that there is none would be naive, but I think we've made major steps. We've obviously had an African-American president. That's a major step. We've also seen a decrease in the crime rate in the African-American community, and we've also seen a decrease in the amount of, I would say, police shootings, and I'd also say there's also been a big movement to step up the development of more impoverished communities.
You seem very informed on this subject, so what do you think about their demand list of all the reparations?
I don't lost. One of my main points against it is reparations. Reparations for what? A lot of people have been oppressed, but that doesn't make them entitled to receive things from other people that may have not even been part of their supposed suppression or racist acts. I mean, like, for example, just because I'm white doesn't mean my family owned slaves or was involved in the oppression of blacks in the South. We were deported from Ireland. In effect, we were oppressed by the British ourselves. And we came very late in the 1900s. Even we came after slavery had been abolished in the United States. So how am I responsible for something that my family wasn't even in this country or on this continent for?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm here with Mrs. McMurray, a teacher at Center Grove High School. I just wanted to ask your opinion on the Black Lives Matter movement.
Not being 100% informed of exactly what that movement is about, I think it's an important thing to do. I think that for too many years, Black people have had strikes against them that you just don't realize if you're white. And all lives matter, of course, but attention has to be drawn to things. So,
A follow-up question, do you think there is racial injustice in the United States?
yes.
Which ones would you?
You hear about the traffic stops. I happen to have a niece who is black, and she gets treated differently than her white sister does. Differently. Just, that's it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm here with fellow student at Center Grove High School, Luke Norton. I just want to ask you what your opinion is on the Black Lives Matter movement.
They do have a point, but you can't really just say that all police officers are bad. Like, if you make that argument, you're literally making the same argument that you believe they are talking about towards you.
Do you feel like there is racial injustice in the United States?
To a certain degree, yes.
All right, thank you. Hi, I'm at Center Grove High School, fellow student, Trey Parks. I just wanted to get your opinion on the Black Lives Matter movement.
Well, I mean, for black people, it seems like we're doing a lot, but at the same time, like, in my opinion, there's really two sides to different stories. Like, forget how, like, the white people think, you know, like, just black people are doing bad things, and black people, we've always been this way. Nothing's really changed. But black people think, you know, white people are being racist and stuff, and it's just how we've been. There's nothing really different. Nothing's really changed. Racism's still there. It's been around for God knows how long.
So do you think there's racism or racist injustice in the United States?
Pretty much. It leans both ways and it's one of those topics where it's really, I feel like it's never going to be resolved because, I mean, it's just always been this way. So.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Hi, I'm here with a fellow student, Brody Dahl, and I just want to ask you what your opinion is on Black Lives Matter's movement.
Well, I would agree that black lives do in fact matter, but I don't think that there needs to be a movement for it, considering all the laws that are in place in our country to make sure that everybody is equal and everybody is treated fairly. And I believe that our legislation and the people enforcing the legislation, for the most part, support that as well. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot of rallies that are senseless violence, and there's a lot of rallies that would have been more effective had they taken place years ago rather than now, when they're not really progressing forward with anything.
Do you feel that there is any current racial injustice in the United States?
I think that I don't think that there's like systematic racial injustice. I think that there's personal racial injustice between people, but there's nothing you're ever going to do about that in a free country where people are allowed to think whatever they want. So.
All right, thank you. Hi, I'm at Center Grove High School interviewing a fellow student of ours, Julius Bird. Julius, what is your opinion on Black Lives Matter?
Black lives do matter. If it wasn't for Black Lives Matter, I don't know if I'd be here today. I don't know if my family would be here today. And I think it's very freaking important for people to understand that and for kids to not abuse their powers over Black Lives Matter.
Do you feel like there's racial injustice in the United States?
I definitely feel like there is sometimes, but I have never experienced it, and I don't plan to ever experience it.
All right, thank you.
Well, sir.
Now to bring in our special guest, Center Grove High School student Jamie Friel and Black Lives Matter movement activist Victor Gacina to debate questions and topics on the Black Lives Matter movement. Hi, I'm John here on Nice News, here with special guests Victor Gacina and Jamie Friel. We'll be debating a couple questions on the Black Lives Matter movement. All right, thank you guys for coming on tonight. To get us started off, we'll start out the question, are reparations needed for Black African Americans? Victor, you can start us off.
Yeah, sure. I think reparations are needed. I mean, if they weren't needed, that'd be kind of saying like our society's perfect and equal. So I think we can always strive to make our society better and more equal. And I guess some reparations would be just trying to achieve a more equal society and trying to upbring or uplift those minorities which are maybe in poverty and less fortunate than us.
And of course I agree that our society is not perfect and that we need to make changes, but I feel like the reparations that they are demanding, they used to demand a lot on their website, they are demanding are a bit more radical than you know, maybe like a balanced system. They're kind of worried about one specific group, when in reality it's not just like they're not alone there. So like bringing everyone together is a
All right, so we agree there needs to be some, but there needs to be checks and balances. All right, and then some misconceptions with Black Lives Matter is people think it's just for Black lives rather than thinking Black lives is superior. So is Black Lives Matter truly for equality?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think people get caught up in the words and the title Black Lives Matter. Just because you're pro Black Lives Matter, that doesn't mean you're anti-white or you're anti anything, anybody. You're just uplifting Black lives, and I think in response to what's been happening lately with Black people and law enforcement. So.
Okay, and are you familiar with intersectionality?
I'm not.
It's like it's basic. It's like the connected culture of everything, like race, gender, all that stuff. And so, in our society, a lot of times we see people say that women are oppressed to men, just like Black are oppressed to white. In this case, is the main point. So, if a white woman is, if she's being oppressed for being a woman, does that mean she's still privileged because she's white? And then on the other side, for a Black man, because he's a man, does that give him more privilege? But then, does he have less privilege because of his race?
I agree, definitely. There's some challenges that Black women face that Black men don't. They're double minorities, being a woman and being a minority Black. So there's definitely double minorities. They go through more struggles, I would say, than a regular minority or just a woman or a Black person, I guess.
All right, and then so the next question is Black Lives Matter is the answer to racism in the U.S. and then if you think that, would you want to see different in Black Lives Matters, or what would you want to keep the same?
I don't think that there's any one true answer for racism in America. I think Black Lives Matter is just one step in the right direction. I think it's kind of like part 2 of the civil rights movement in a way. So I don't think it's the answer, but I think it's working to achieve or bring to light the issues that are in our society to achieve a more perfect union.
And what I think is they're framing the traditional class struggles between everyone and putting it into Black and white. So I don't think they're really looking at, they're not looking at everything. They're setting two things apart. And honestly, some of the things that they're asking for are really unattainable. I think one of the things on the website, another reparation was a mandatory livable income for not everyone, but for the Black community. And I just think that's kind of contradicting to the whole movement.
I don't know a lot of the reparations well enough to speak on them, but based off what you're saying, I think that.
And I do think that there are some that are definitely necessary and correct, but yeah, I think that a lot, when you put a bunch of radical statements, I wouldn't say a bunch, but radical statements with less radical, like it kind of takes away from your main purpose during the whole.
I agree. I think there's people on both spectrums. I mean, if there's people that are more extreme or whatever in the cause, that may not be the most attainable thing.
Yeah.
So.
All right, and then for the next question, are Blacks a bigger target than whites? And that can go for police or the wage gap, or inequality, just in general.
Okay. I'm going to try to address this as quickly as possible, but I think in terms of police brutality or law enforcement, Blacks are a bigger target because of stereotypes that our society has made for Black people, and these stereotypes go super far back. So on that end, I do think so. On income and wages, I think that minorities and Black people, my parents are immigrants, so I think there's we're a little bit behind. We're not on the same level as white people who have lived in this country and have their roots in this country, because there's generational wealth and my parents are first generations Americans to live here, so they kind of had to start from scratch. So I know that's not the case for all Black people, but I think that plays a part in it.
So you think it has to do more with the generation rather than the race, like the amount of time lived here?
I think that too, but race as well. I mean, there's I wouldn't say equal opportunity, but opportunities a concept. I would say that's hard to. I don't know. Our society is still trying to give everybody an equal opportunity, and it's harder for some minorities because they may not have the right education or the right whatever. So. Yeah.
Okay, so for the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of things that they like to draw attention to around like the struggles. They're all like ownership of resources, like collective, using businesses, having a higher income tax, less government jobs, all for the Black community, and their marginalization of all these struggles basically indirectly claim that white privilege is existent. And I don't know if you have an opinion on white privilege. Do you?
Yeah.
Well, can I hear it?
Yeah. Well, I think it's something that people don't want to hear, but white privilege is something that exists. It's definitely prevalent in America. It's gotten, as time goes by, I think we're seeing a more equal society, but Black people are not given the same opportunities. Not just Black people, but other minorities are not given the same privileges and opportunities as white people right off the bat. So, and I mean, I can go into further detail, but
yeah, I gotta cut it off. You gotta.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so back to what we were talking about. What was the question again?
Blacks a bigger target than whites?
I do think that the crime. Are you talking about like politically or like
politically? So institutional or just like in general, like.
Okay, so I think that a lot of the targeting that you're talking about can come from things like crime rates, or if you look at the statistics between, like, I know cop killings is a big one that they like to focus on. If you really look at the statistics, you can tell that an unarmed Black man against a cop would be the same as an armed. Like, what I'm trying to say is, white men are killed statistically more by police than Black men, and the crime rates of Black men is much higher than the white men. So, do you think that has a role on how cops react in a situation?
Well, that's like a loaded
He'll
question.
be finishing a statement on this question.
Can you ask it one more time?
So, do you think that cops, and I don't want to generalize all of them, but for the majority of cops who are not racist or pigs or whatever you want, do you think that they have some reason to feel a little more defensive when confronting not just an average Black or white man walking down the street, but a criminal who has been like called the police on or something like that? Do you think that they could have a possible reason in their head, opinion, to feel more defensive against the...
I think that sometimes they do feel more defensive when dealing with Black criminals as opposed to white criminals, but I don't think that it's validated. Our country has made these stereotypes that Black people tend to be, I don't know, bigger, meaner, more, they kind of, I don't know, just a little bit, more on the criminal side, and people are scared of Black people. That's a stereotype, but I think so. I think that they have that mentality. Some of them, not all of them. So.
All right, so next question is, was the H&M monkey shirt racist, or did you find offense to that?
I personally didn't. I think that it's just something that was a poor, I think it was just, they didn't consider it. I mean, you hear like kids are monkeys or whatever, they run around. I just don't think that they really thought about it, and I know there's many people that like go through the decision making when picking shirts out for models or whatever. But I just don't think, I think they could have been a little bit more sensitive. I don't think it was meant to be racist. I just think it was bad. It was just they didn't take time to consider the options. Yeah.
I could agree with that there was not enough sense in that. Not even if it was supposed to be or not supposed to be racist.
All right, and then to wrap it up, are the riots by Black Lives Matter's movement effective? And I think that some of the people often get the concept that if they're doing things not peacefully, like Martin Luther King, that takes away from them. You know, like that takes away from their message. And like your both thoughts are on that.
Well, I mean, I will say the Black Lives Matter doesn't set out to have riots. Now, there have been riots as in reaction to like what happened in. Can't think of it, but yeah, riots have happened, but Black Lives Matter really they want to have demonstrations and protests and whatever. But the ones that I've been to have been peaceful. They can get out of hand, but they're peaceful, and I think they are effective because I mean it's just people exercising our rights to demonstrate and to protest what we believe, and I think they are effective because it's drawing attention to issues, and so. Yeah.
So I've seen like numerous numbers of peaceful protests, and I've also seen peaceful protests turn very bad, and I think that's kind of counterproductive for the claim of, for the Black Lives Matter movement, you're not really wanting a negative light on that. And there's a Harvard study that showed that 53% of people from the study, I'm not sure how many were taken from that actually, but 53% of those people had a negative view of Black Lives Matter, and I think that's directly from maybe riots getting out of hand, so I think that's kind of counterproductive. And then I also think that when you step out of the peaceful protest and you step more into the throwing, breaking, vandalizing, all that, it creates a much bigger problem than it needed to be in the first place.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, we're out of time. Nice news, and thank you, Jamie and Victor, for joining us.
I hope many of you take a lot from this new segment and are now educated on Black Lives Matter. We value our citizens and want them to know what is going on in the real world. Nice news, your source for the truth.